Hi everyone, I'm Ravi Verma. Today I'm going to present about my essay which titled Cultural Imperialism versus Countercultural Imperialism. Before we go deeper to the topic, let's see what imperialism is really means about. Imperialism is a strategy or philosophy for expanding the rule over peoples and other nations through the use of hard power, especially military force, but also soft power to expand political and economic access, power and control. Imperialism, while related to the notion of colonization, and is a distinct notion that can refer to other ways of expansion and many forms of government. Throughout documented history, expansion and also centralization has existed by state, with the earliest example dating back to the mid-30 millennium BC. The idea of imperialism, however, originated in the modern era, identified mainly in the 18th, 17th and also 19th century European colonial powers and new imperialism. The term imperialism comes from a Latin word which means imperium, meaning absolute authority or literally rule. It was common in the modern sense in Great Britain during 1870s. Now, let's look at what is cultural imperialism. Cultural imperialism, also called cultural colonization, comprised the cultural aspect of imperialism. Here, imperialism referred to a creation and maintenance of unequal civilization relationship, favoring a more powerful civilization. Thus, the practice of promoting and imposing a culture, usually that of a political powerful country on a less powerful society, is cultural imperialism. Now, let's look at the history of cultural imperialism. In ancient Greece, when Alexander the Great invaded the Persian and Indian, he was spreading the Greek pagan religion, poetry and science all the way to the Indus River Valley and Punjab. Even medieval Muslim scholars in the Middle East studied the writing of Aristotle for scientific learning. While in ancient Rome, an early example of cultural imperialism was the Roman Empire. By replacing the Etruscan language with Latin, early Rome, in its invasion of Italy, assimilated the inhabitants of Etruria, which contributed to the extinction of that language and many facets of Etruscan culture. While in Nazi colonization, cultural imperialism has also been used in connection with the expansion of German influence under the Nazi in the middle of the 20th century. The action by Nazi Germany reflect on the notion of race and culture playing a significant role in imperialism. The idea that there is a distinction between the Germans and the Jews has created an illusion of Germans believing they were superior to the Jewish inferiors. The notion of us, them and self-others. And the most famous cultural imperialism happened with Americanization. We can't pinpoint someone who doesn't recognize McDonald's, Coca-Cola or Disney. Many countries, almost every country in the world has been affected by the US and their pop culture. Even the movie industries in various countries started to identify their film industry with Hollywood. They even name it similar to Hollywood, such as Nollywood in Nigeria, Collywood, Tollywood and so on. It's safe to say that Hollywood has culturally affected viewers across the world. Acculturation is a keyword in this research about cultural imperialism. It's a process of psychological, social and cultural change that happens from having two different cultures existing in a community. It's a process where an individual adapts to a new culture and acquire new cultural understanding. Acculturation often results in changes in culture, religion, self-care and social life. It also brings changes in a person's interest in food, clothing and language by overtaking the old interests. Now let's see how America started the cultural imperialism and take over the world. After the end of World War II, cultural globalization has been the main focus of US to capture the global capitalism. They didn't just take over countries, but they started to introduce Coca-Cola, jazz music and Hollywood music and some American cultures not only at the European continent but also in Asian continents. It caused an economical rise change into cultural imperialism. In relation to the Third World, cultural imperialism can be defined as the systematic penetration and domination of the cultural life of the popular classes by ruling classes of the West in order to reorder the values of behavior, institution and also identity of the oppressed people to conform the interests of the imperial classes. Brands such as Coca-Cola, McDonald's and KFC began to spread and people started to go to these brands, go to these franchises more often. They always love and it became a culture and also a part of their daily life. We can see the Hollywood movies taking over the film industry over the world. We can see the collections, the box office collection of the Hollywood movies are far more enormous compared to any film industry in the world. Even the music industry have been affected by the Americanization. The hip-hop music, the jazz music has become the new normal to the people, and they have adapted to that, and they even integrated this culture into their culture, then thus reborn a new culture calling Malaysian hip-hop music, and also Malay hip-hop music, English Tamil hip-hop musics. This clearly shows us how the global capitalism has been captured by the US. Most of the Asians are familiar with, influenced by Hollywood movies. Even the fashion sense of Asians is influenced by America. But everything changed when Asian countries start to counter this phenomenon. For an example, Bollywood, K-pop and such more. Here we are going to focus on how K-pop became a global phenomenon by counter-imperialism. Let's look at what is counter-cultural imperialism is really about. Counter-imperialism is the peripheral countries fight back the core countries and resist or become equal to them. But here in the context, I'm exploring how Korea's #1 boy band countered the cultural imperialism brought by America and even conquered the global market. The Korean audiovisual industry has begun producing and exporting domestic television programs and film on large scale, while reducing imports from the US. BTS is a Korean pop group made of 7 members from South Korea. They officially launched in 2013. Their latest album, Love Yourself Answer, has been at the top of the US charts, which made South Korean President Moon Jae-in congratulate them in Twitter. Here are some interesting facts about BTS. BTS scored 3 #1 albums in the Billboard 200 chart in just less than a year. After the Beatles from US, BTS is the first boy band to achieve this record. The EP Map of the Soul Persona successfully sold 3.5 million copies around the world in just 6 months of this release date. In just US alone, 562,000 copies were sold. YouTube has gone crazy with 100 million views in just 48 hours after the Boy with Love video has been released. Other than that, BTS emerged as the first Asian band to surpass 5 billion streams on Spotify. Other than BTS, foods such as Korean fried chicken has become a famous food in Asia. As we know, mostly we would see when we travel around the world, when we travel around Malaysia or Asia, we will definitely see McDonald's, KFC, Pizza Hut and other US franchise restaurants. But now it's common to see Korean franchise restaurants around the world, and even in Malaysia. We can see takoyaki and also far more Korean food taking over the capitalism captured by US. Apart from that, Korean drama, Korean movies and also Korean pop music has become a phenomenon in Malaysia and also in Asia. This clearly shows that the cultural imperialism posted by American in Asia has been changed and also countered by the Korean wave. This Korean wave has showed us that cultural imperialism is always can be countered when we produce a good quality content. And thank you, that's from me. I'm Ravi Verma. Have a nice day.